Following some breaking news now, wrestling legend Hulk Hogan has died. His manager told NBC Los Angeles that Hogan died surrounded by his family in Clearwater, Florida this morning. He was 71 years old.
He wasn't just a man, he was a cultural landmark, a real-life superhero with 24-inch pythons, 4 arms, and a mantra that raised a generation. For decades, Hulk Hogan was the immortal, the indestructible force who told millions of us to train, say our prayers, and eat our vitamins. His strength was legendary, his presence mythical. But on July 24, 2025, that myth crashed into a tragic, mortal reality. The world suddenly learned that this titan of pop culture, this icon of strength, was gone. The initial reports were fast and clinical, citing a cardiac arrest that brought the immortal Hulkster down for the final count. It was a simple, clean explanation for a figure who was anything but. But for the millions who grew up with Hulkamania running wild, simple was never part of the deal. In the quiet that followed the headlines, whispers turned to rumors, and speculation started running wild. Claims of a secret autopsy report, one filled with shocking details, began to bubble up, painting a picture far more complex than a simple heart attack. These aren't just internet rumors. They're questions born from the collective grief of fans who just want to understand how a hero of invincibility could suddenly be so fragile. This isn't another rumor mill. This is a look at what we actually know. We're going to peel back the layers of speculation and get to the hard facts. We'll separate the public story from the hidden truths and dig into the claims about what really happened in Hulk Hogan's final hours. Because the most shocking detail about his death might not be what's in some secret report, but what was hiding in plain sight the whole time. To get the shock of his death, you have to understand the sheer scale of his life. Before Terry Bell was the Hulkster, he was a struggling musician and a regional wrestler just trying to find his place. But in the early 80s, a perfect storm of charisma, timing, and vision changed everything. Vince McMahon, taking over what was then the WWF, saw more than a wrestler in the towering, platinum blonde powerhouse. He saw the future of entertainment. Hulkamania wasn't just a wrestling gimmick, it was a cultural revolution. It was the rock and wrestling connection, a brilliant mashup of sports and celebrity that dragged wrestling out of the smoky bingo halls and into the MTV spotlight. Hogan was its engine. He was the all-American hero in red and yellow who'd cup his ear too. The roar of the crowd, Hulk up against impossible odds, and crush villains with his thunderous leg drop. He gave us catchphrases that became part of the global language. What you gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you wasn't just a threat to his opponents, it was a promise of excitement to an entire generation of Hulkamaniacs. He was the centerpiece of the very first WrestleMania in 1985, an event that bet the entire company's future on his massive shoulders, and it paid off, big time, launching wrestling into a golden era. Hogan's matches were morality plays. His showdown with the colossal Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 is a moment frozen in time. The image of Hogan lifting the 500-pound giant and slamming him to the mat is without a doubt the single most iconic moment in wrestling history, a feat of strength that cemented his superhero status for millions. He wasn't just a champion, he was the champion. Holding the WWE's top title 6 times, his influence spilled out of the ring and into every corner of pop culture. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, on late-night talk show couches, and even had his own Saturday morning cartoon. His cameo in Rocky III as the swaggering Thunderlips introduced him to a movie audience before Hulkamania even had a name. He was a marketing machine. His face was on lunchboxes, action figures, and cereal boxes. The 3 demandments, train, say your prayers, and eat your vitamins, became a genuine code for countless kids who saw him as a true role model. But no hero's story is complete without a fall, and Hogan's career was defined by his shocking ability to reinvent. In 1996, in a move that should have been career suicide, he turned his back on the fans. He dropped the red and yellow and re-emerged in black and white as the arrogant, villainous Hollywood Hogan, forming the New World Order, or NWO, in WCW. That heel turn wasn't just a character change, it was a seismic shift that lit the wrestling world on fire, creating the most compelling storyline the business had ever seen. The NWO dominated wrestling for years, and at its center was Hogan, the fallen hero, who was now cooler, more dangerous, and somehow more popular than ever. Even after his prime, he remained a public fixture. He starred in the reality show Hogan Knows Best, which gave us a bizarre, often funny look at his family life in Clearwater, Florida. It showed the world Terry Bollea, a dad dealing with teenage drama, a world away from the godlike figure. In the ring, he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame twice, once for his solo career, and again with the NWO. His life wasn't without deep, public controversies. Scandals and personal struggles sometimes threatened his legacy, making him a complicated and often polarizing figure, but through it all, his status as an icon was undeniable. As Vince McMahon himself said, he was the greatest WWE superstar of all time. A trailblazer. He was the immortal Hulk Hogan, and immortals aren't supposed to die. The morning of Thursday, July 24, 2025, started like any other in sunny Clearwater, Florida, but at 9:51 a.m., a frantic 911 call from a home on El Dorado Avenue shattered the peace. The reason for the call was chillingly simple: cardiac arrest. The resident was 71-year-old Terry Bollea, the man the world knew as Hulk Hogan. Clearwater. Fire and rescue and police were on the scene in minutes. They found the man who built a career on superhuman resilience in the middle of a desperate medical crisis. For over half an hour, crews worked tirelessly right there on the scene before Sunstar paramedics rushed him to Morton Plant Hospital at around 10:32 a.m., but the force that had kicked out of 1,000 pinfalls couldn't overcome this last challenge. At 11:17 a.m., Terry Bollea was pronounced dead. The news spread with brutal, digital speed. TMZ was one of the first to break the story, and it instantly went global. The Clearwater Police Department moved fast to control the narrative, holding a press conference to lay out the facts. Major Nate Burnside confirmed the timeline and stated clearly that the death was being treated as a serious medical-related issue. He then added the crucial line, "There are no signs of foul play or anything suspicious about his death." It was a standard investigation for a case like this, but there was nothing standard about the man himself. The official confirmation from the WWE sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. Their statement was short and somber. WWE is saddened to learn WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan has passed away. WWE extends its condolences to Hogan's family, friends, and fans. The world erupted in grief. Tributes poured in from everywhere. Ric Flair, his longtime friend and rival, was heartbroken, saying he'd been told just a day earlier that Hogan's health was fine. Sylvester Stallone, his Rocky III co-star, called him a magician in the ring. Even President Donald Trump, a longtime friend, remembered him as MAGA all the way: strong, tough, smart, but with the biggest heart. The official story was one of a sudden, tragic, but medically simple passing. A 71-year-old man with a history of health problems had suffered a fatal cardiac arrest. It was a story without conspiracy or mystery. It was clean, simple, and for many fans, deeply unsatisfying. The man who was a real-life superhero was gone, and cardiac arrest felt like a final chapter with the most important pages torn out. But was it really that simple? A sudden heart failure. For a man whose entire identity was built on superhuman strength, the official story, no matter how factual, just felt incomplete. In the information vacuum that followed, the internet started asking questions, and those questions quickly spiraled into theories, rumors, and wild claims. The ground was already fertile for this kind of speculation. Rumors about Hogan's failing health had been swirling for weeks, kicked into overdrive by radio host Bubba, the Love Sponge, who claimed the legend was on his deathbed. His family aggressively shot those rumors down at the time. His wife, Sky Daly, took to Instagram to reassure everyone, stating, "No, he's definitely not in a coma. His heart is strong." His reps insisted he was just recovering from a planned surgery, and there was no reason to panic. But with his death, those old rumors took on a dark, new life. The official cause of death was now viewed with suspicion. Had the family been hiding how serious his condition really was? What really happened during that recent surgery? The internet, desperate for answers, started searching for a definitive source, a document that could cut through the noise. The autopsy report. In the world of celebrity deaths, the autopsy report becomes this mythical document, the key that unlocks the real story. And so, a new narrative formed online. The official cause of death was just a cover story. The real details, the shocking findings, were being kept under wraps. just waiting to be leaked from the medical examiner's office. This is where the conflict lies. On one side, you have the official statements from police and family, pointing to a tragic but natural end. On the other, a storm of online speculation and a demand for a deeper truth. Fans want to know what the Hulk Hogan autopsy report says. The truth, though, is far more complex and heartbreaking than any leaked document. The internet is buzzing with talk of a bombshell autopsy report, one that supposedly reveals the real cause of Hulk Hogan's death. So let's start with the most important fact. As of today, no official autopsy report for Terry Bollea has been made public. There have been no leaks from the Pinellas County Medical Examiner. The shocking new details people are talking about aren't from a coroner's file. They're coming from a much more tragic and public record. The story of a body pushed to its absolute limit for decades. The truth of Hogan's decline isn't some mystery we need to solve. It's a history we need to understand. So let's tackle the speculation, piece by piece, and separate the fiction from the hard, documented facts. The fiction here is that Hogan was doing just fine until a sudden, catastrophic event that couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is that Terry Bollea's body had been in a slow-motion collapse for over a decade, the painful price he paid for being Hulk Hogan. The shocking details weren't a secret. He talked about them himself. On a podcast, Hogan laid out the staggering physical toll. I've had like 25 surgeries in the last 10 years. 10 of them were back surgeries. Just think about that. That's an average of 2.5 major surgeries every single year for a decade. The list is brutal. Beyond the 10 back operations, he had both knees replaced, both hips replaced, and surgeries on his shoulders, eyes, and abdomen. His daughter Brooke once said the real number was probably closer to 30. His battle with his back was especially punishing. For years, he was trapped in a cycle of pain, surgery, and more pain. He even filed a $50 million lawsuit against a spine institute, claiming they talked him into unnecessary procedures that made things worse. For a man who built his legend on standing tall, the fight to simply stay upright was a constant, agonizing war. To manage the pain, Hogan, like many athletes of his time, relied on painkillers. He spoke openly about this, revealing how the pills left him in a brain fog. While he reportedly quit painkillers and alcohol around 2023, the decades of damage to his body was a debt that was coming due. The idea of a sudden decline is a fantasy. The reality was a slow, grinding deterioration happening right in front of us. This brings us to the biggest rumor, that his recent heart surgery in June 2025 was botched and led directly to his death. The truth is more nuanced and, in many ways, more tragic. Sources close to the family reported that in his final months, Hogan was dealing with what they described as a weak heart. He was suffering from shortness of breath, extreme fatigue, and had lost a significant amount of weight. He was even on oxygen at times. His major heart surgery in June wasn't a minor tune-up. It was a serious high-risk procedure for anyone, let alone a 71-year-old man, whose body was already a roadmap of surgical scars and chronic pain. This wasn't the first time a surgery had left him with major issues. Fellow wrestler Kurt Angle claimed back in 2023 that a previous back surgery had left Hogan with no feeling in his lower body, forcing him to walk with a cane. While Hogan's team downplayed it, the image of the immortal Hulkster needing a cane was a stark, public symbol of his fragility. Now, connect the dots. You have a man with a compromised heart and respiratory system, who then undergoes a massive, traumatic cardiac surgery. His body, already running on fumes, was now faced with the monumental task of recovering. There's no evidence the surgeons made a mistake. The shocking detail here isn't malpractice. It's medical reality. A body can only take so much. The decades of leg drops, of body slams on unforgiving rings, had done catastrophic, cumulative damage. The final surgery wasn't the cause. It was likely the final straw. It was one battle too many for a warrior whose body had already fought a lifetime of wars. His heart, weakened by decades of stress and recent trauma, finally gave out. That's not a conspiracy. It's a tragedy. The story of Hulk Hogan is a complex mix of triumph and tragedy. Before we get into his lasting legacy, if you're finding this investigation valuable, please take a second to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. It helps us keep bringing you in-depth stories like this one. In the days after his death, fans gathered at his Hogan's Beach shop, laying flowers and sharing stories, turning a tourist trap into a place of pilgrimage. The grief was real, a testament to the powerful connection he built with millions. But his legacy, just like his life, is a study in contrasts. For every fan who remembers the hero, there are others who point to the controversies, creating a complicated memory. Maybe the most telling tributes came from those who knew the man behind the bandana. His friend and former boss, Eric Bischoff, put it perfectly. Terry Bollea was different than Hulk Hogan, Bischoff explained. Terry Bollea, the man, was kind. He was generous. He just had a big heart. And until you got to know Terry Bollea, you were overwhelmed with the character Hulk Hogan. It's a sentiment many have echoed, painting a picture of a man often quieter and more thoughtful than his loud on-screen persona in his later years. Those close to him saw him turn toward his faith. He was publicly baptized in 2023, an event he shared with pride. Bischoff noted that in his last few years, Hogan got so much closer to his faith, and it brought joy to him. This search for peace is a touching counter-narrative to the physical pain that defined so much of his later life. It's the story of Terry Bollea, the man, looking for a comfort that Hulk Hogan, the character, could never provide. His impact on the business he built is immeasurable. He was the foundation of the 80s wrestling boom, the face of a global expansion that turned a niche hobby into a billion-dollar industry. Every superstar since has, in some way, walked in his enormous footsteps, but he paid for that legacy with his own body. The very thing that made him seem immortal in the ring is what ultimately made him so tragically mortal. So, what does the Hulk Hogan autopsy report really reveal? The hard truth is, for now, it reveals nothing, because no report has been released to the public. There are no confirmed, shocking secrets from the medical examiner. There is no hidden conspiracy. The real story, the one pieced together from years of public records, interviews, and his own words, is far more tragic. The most shocking details of Hulk Hogan's final years were never a secret. They were in the staggering count of over 25 surgeries. They were in the public sightings of him walking with a cane, a fallen giant. They were in the reports of his weak heart and his struggle for breath in his final weeks. The ultimate cause of death wasn't some mystery that happened on the morning of July 24th. It was the result of 40 years of punishment. It was the final bill for a lifetime of dropping the leg, of taking the slam, of being the indestructible hero we all needed him to be. He didn't die from a secret. He died from the very public, brutal, and undeniable price of immortality. The world will always remember the icon, Hulk Hogan, but it was the man, Terry Bollea, who paid the ultimate price for that fame, leaving behind a legacy as colossal and as complicated as the legend he created.